Welcome to Selling to Procurement. In this video I will explain the rise of procurement and why it has become a mainstream, often strategic business function. Its influence is considerable and it continues to grow. This presents an often stark choice for sales professionals, whether to continue with an approach that focuses on building relationships with decision makers outside of the professional buying community, or to commit to deeply understanding procurement. And once understood, to then integrate that understanding into sales practice and learning to sell to procurement with confidence. The key takeaways from this video, I suggest, are the following. One, that procurement is now a key influential function that sales must learn to sell to. It is mainstream now, not simply a mundane administrative function. And two, digitisation is making supply chains more transparent. Professional buyers have access to far more and better data than previously, and their ability to understand suppliers' cost drivers is pushing down sales margins. And three, sales professionals must learn to understand the standard procurement methodology. It's partly of what this series of videos is about, and then integrate that into account strategy and account planning and negotiation preparation. And finally, sales' temptation to bypass or ignore procurement should, in my view, be resisted. It rarely works like it used to. Instead, my strong recommendation is to engage with procurement proactively and with confidence. In this period of our business history, the pressure for cost down is relentless. When the crash within the financial system occurred in 2008, many businesses went into crisis mode. Business owners and chief executives immediately demanded a reduction in company expenditure. Business travel was severely restricted, projects and recruitment were put on hold, and suppliers were often challenged to make a contribution to safeguard the customer's business and future revenue streams. In some exceptional cases, contracts were even ripped up or at least challenged by procurement, and hasty renegotiations took place across all sectors. During this crisis, procurement stepped into the spotlight. Missives were sent out to all suppliers to reduce prices and rates, and for the most important suppliers, conferences were held where the theme was, somewhat inevitably, accelerated cost reduction. When organisations are under the sort of pressure such a financial crisis creates, then it's almost inevitable that price pressure is going to be front and centre in all negotiations. It's considered a quick win for procurement, and particularly for external consultants who undertake sourcing reviews for their clients. And ignoring customer pleas for reductions is a tough challenge for salespeople to resist. Even though the peak of the financial crisis is long behind us, the pressure on suppliers in delivering improved value for money is not letting up. So for business leaders, it's not difficult to see why procurement gets attention under these types of circumstances. But there is also a general rule that underpins procurement influence, and that is its impact on the bottom line of the organisation. With this in mind, I'm going to propose to you 6 common themes that are contributing to this growth in procurement influence. Number 1, companies are buying or outsourcing more than ever. 2, procurement status has been elevated to many, if not necessarily all, boardrooms. 3, digitisation is making it easier for procurement to achieve cost transparency and drive contract compliance. 4, procurement is a maturing profession, it's no longer a fringe activity. And 5, it delivers near immediate business results. Savings can go straight to the bottom line. And finally 6, procurement operates a standard process common across all business sectors. Let's look at these 6 factors in more detail. Firstly, companies are buying or outsourcing more than ever. Multiple studies report that companies on average spend around 70% of their revenues externally with third-party suppliers of goods and services, and this compares to around 13% on staff costs, which shows the scale of procurement's importance. Just imagine, if 70% of your business is reliant on external suppliers, then paying attention to this is not really an option. Your company's survival may depend on it. And then there is globalization. The expansion of global sourcing has been relentless and has dramatically changed the landscape in which many businesses currently operate. 20 years ago, sourcing from distant and low-cost economies was characterized by infrequent and often delayed communications, rare visits, uncertainties over quality and delivery, and a lack of enthusiasm from stakeholder colleagues who usually preferred their tried and tested local suppliers. But nowadays, it's commonplace and accepted as normal business practice. There are increasing numbers of professional buyers who are adept in global sourcing and are ever eager to throw down a challenge to any incumbent domestic supplier. All this is also undoubtedly helped by large supplying companies responding by offering global deals and solutions to customers determined to minimize costs. Secondly, the Chief Procurement Officer, or the CPO role, is now firmly established in many organisations in recognition of procurement's increasingly strategic contribution. The function status continues to grow and these CPOs have been elevated to many boardrooms. Moreover, high-performing and highly credible procurement leaders have become CEOs in a growing number of companies. Thirdly, digitisation is making it easier for procurement to achieve cost transparency and drive contract compliance. The growth of third-party digital solutions made available to procurement leaders in recent years has enabled procurement processes to result in greater consistency of working across procurement's category managers and their teams, and across the corporation as a whole. These digital solutions have made it easier to compare supplier offerings and to acquire and maintain supplier market information. The amount and quality of data and insight available to today's professional buyer is far removed from the old ways of calculators and simple spreadsheets. Digitisation has also made it possible for procurement to devolve day-to-day working to stakeholders through the use of online catalogues, increasingly resembling Amazon-like user interfaces. Ultimately, this drives contract compliance, which, although sometimes resulting in choice limitations for stakeholders, is normally very good for the winning supplier as it drives up that contract compliance. So-called maverick buying becomes much more difficult. Fourthly, procurement is a maturing profession. It's no longer a fringe or merely tolerated back-office activity. There are now many universities and business schools offering courses in procurement and supply chain management. For example, there is the growing number of MBA programs, one of which is at the University of Birmingham Business School, which was the first of its kind in the UK. And then there is the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, or CIPS, which has had a great impact in helping professionalise procurement practice over many years. CIPS membership continues to grow, with significant growth potential in China, the USA and Africa, and which CIPS is ideally placed to exploit. In summary, procurement has grown in influence and capability and is now a profession attracting some of the best talent available. Procurement can also deliver near immediate business results. Savings can go straight to the bottom line. In this simple example, we see a company turning over £1 billion, dollars, euros. You can choose your own currency. You can see that it is spending 70% of its revenues in the supply chain, and as mentioned earlier, staff costs represent 13%. The remainder is other overheads. Its profit is 5% or 50 million on its 1 billion revenues, a normal, fairly large organisation. But like in real life, the board and the company shareholders demand better performance and financial returns, so the company begins to think, amongst other things, more deeply about procurement. A new CPO is recruited and she agrees to a savings target of 10%, perhaps over a year or 2 years, and this is pretty standard for most procurement organisations. If she is successful in building the right team and is diligent in implementing best practice, then in this simple example, if everything else remains unchanged, profits more than double. It's a compelling value proposition the CPO can take to the board, especially when the sales growth that would be required to double total company profits would be off the scale. So it's not surprising that procurement's importance is becoming recognised and more people are entering the profession when its business impact can be so significant. And finally, over the past 20 years, a standard method of procurement has emerged, and it's a method that's equally applicable across almost all business sectors. This is the category management process. With this standard process, we find common analyses such as power and leverage, value stream mapping, 5 forces and portfolio analyses, which underpin sourcing strategies. And then supplier relationship management, or SRM, which covers the whole post-contract period, where procurement aims to secure additional value from key supplier relationships. In the case of SRM, no longer can suppliers rest on their laurels after winning the contract. Performance and value improvement are a must. Some even suggested that today's procurement methods represent an almost scientific approach, and category management's track record and reliability in delivering value to companies goes a long way in supporting this notion. With the rise of procurement, the challenge for salespeople in becoming more successful is twofold. Firstly, whether they can deeply understand procurement and its methods. And secondly, integrating that new understanding into account management, selling and negotiation practice. The knowledge of procurement methods among salespeople is often wafer thin, and the prejudice against professional buyers deep. Salespeople need to make understanding procurement a core competence, as the function can no longer be bypassed or ignored. And this requires a more strategic outlook, curiosity to see the customer relationship in a new way, and a commitment to engage with procurement with confidence and intention. It's what selling to procurement is all about.